Hey everyone, and welcome to SkillCapped. I'm the King Live, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the lesser known concepts about opping in Valorant. If you're a big fan of Sentinels, you'll probably know that ShahZam is an incredible op user and definitely plays a major role in his team's success in matches. There are lots of nuances that go into using the operator that many players don't understand though, so that's why we're going to be breaking down how ShahZam uses the operator to absolutely crush his games so that you can bring your game to the next level. If that sounds good to you, stick with us as we get into it, but before we do, let's introduce our question of the day, which is, do you think the operator needs a buff? A lot of players really struggle to deal with the operator in lower ranks, but at the same time, a lot of top tier players say that the operator is pretty weak right now. I'm interested to hear what the community thinks about this one, as there seems to be an even split for what people think, at least on the surface. Enough talking about that though, let's talk about the first thing you'll notice from ShahZam, which is actually the process of obtaining that operator initially in the game. Generally, it seems to be a toss-up on whether or not players actually attempt to save for an operator, and the reason for that is it's incredibly expensive to purchase. However, the interesting thing with this is that although it's very expensive, it's also highly desired by most teams, so once the operator is purchased, it's oftentimes going to stay in play for a while, meaning that even if you end up dying and losing the operator, somebody is likely going to pick it up so that they will not have to purchase it again. Now obviously you don't want to lose that operator to the enemy team, but the point here is that once an operator is in play, it generally stays in play for the course of the game, and both teams are going to have to adapt to that. But what is the best way to save for an operator? Because you shouldn't be just not purchasing anything for the first 3 rounds just to have the hope of buying an operator. That's going to put your team at a clear disadvantage. What you'll notice from ShahZam normally is that if his team wins the first round, he will opt to force up second round, whether it's a Bulldog or a Spectre, because he wants to be able to secure the round for his team as well. Many players opt to just stick with a Ghost or a Sheriff, but this can be a really dangerous tactic, and it doesn't always make the best sense either. Because if you're sticking with a Ghost with the intention to save for an operator on third round, even if you do end up winning the second round, your team is likely going to still be on Spectres for the third round bonus. I don't know about you, but I don't really want to purchase an operator on a round where my team is not going to be likely to win that round. This is why a lot of the times you're going to see ShahZam forces up a Bulldog instead on second round if he can afford it, because then he could take this Bulldog into the third round bonus and have a decently strong gun versus rifles to potentially end up clutching out a third round for his team. If your team wins the bonus round, this is an amazing opportunity to buy an operator because your economy is going to be booming, and this is going to give you a massive opportunity to take control of the game as the enemy team is going to be on an eco again. Another great opportunity to purchase an operator though comes from almost the opposite. This is when your team wins on an eco round and you're able to pick up free rifles for the next round from your opponents. Because you don't have to purchase up guns this round because you got your guns for free from the last round, you're able to save up your money for a chance to buy an operator for the next time you buy. This is what you see from ShahZam right here when he picks up the Guardian off of the enemy team. He's able to carry that Guardian into the next round and use that extra money to buy an operator the next chance that he got. Now this is just how ShahZam saves for the operator generally. Try to remember, although the operator is incredibly strong, it's not always worth destroying your team's entire economy for it, and if you're looking to purchase an operator, you should be thinking about saving for it for a few rounds prior. It's generally not a good idea to force up an operator with no armor and no abilities, so if you're going to save for an operator, try to keep in mind what you can afford to spend on all of the rounds leading up to it to make sure that your team's economy is in the best position possible when you get there. That's just about saving for the operator though. How about what you should be doing when you're using the operator? Well, we're going to cover that in just a second, but I really wanted to say if you're actually looking to bring your game to the next level, I highly recommend that you check out all of the guides we have available on SkillCapped.com. We have up-to-date lineups, courses on how to improve with all agents, Smurf commentaries where a higher rank player walks you through how to carry in your rank, and so much more. It's also backed by our rank improvement guarantee, so if you don't feel like you've gotten value out of it, it's literally no risk. So if that interests you, head on over to SkillCapped.com and join over 500,000 satisfied members, and you can improve that KDA and start winning more games today. Link in the description below. Moving on to one thing that I think is really awesome about watching ShahZam use the operator though, is his playstyle when using it. Don't get me wrong, Shaz is definitely capable of going aggressive with the operator and looking for a peek. Especially with the nature of an agent like Jet, she can really find this sort of playstyle rewarding. But something also worth mentioning is that a lot of players maybe don't realize that the operator is actually a support weapon. It's just like a sniper rifle in any other game. Generally, they're not always going to be the best weapon to get aggressive with and clear tight angles on the map. For this reason, generally the player with the operator is going to have more of a supportive role, and rather than pushing up for retakes or site takes, what they should be doing is holding angles where their team is potentially threatened to make sure that they are safe from those angles. Notice how in this retake, Shaz isn't running around on site trying to clear U-Haul. He's paying attention to his map and calling out where he either knows players are or very likely believes that they are, and then he's holding the swing for his teammates from short. Because he's holding the swing, his team is a lot safer to push up to clear the rest of the site. Now don't get me wrong, there are definitely times where he might say, okay, I am more needed pushing up right now rather than just holding this angle, but this is what the operator is really good at, holding angles. He is currently supporting his team on site as they push up by holding the swing from a dangerous location. Notice how immediately after landing the kill on Sova in short, he turns his attention towards showers where he believes Raze is playing. He's holding this angle so his teammates can move towards the bomb and close in on a defuse. After Raze doesn't peek out of showers though, he knows that there is something wrong with the timing and she must have rotated around towards short. Although he's not the one who lands the kill on her here, take note of his crosshair placement. He's not running around all over the place, aiming at every single possible location. He's holding important angles for his team so that they don't have to worry about the swing. Something also really important here is calling out what angle you're holding so that your team knows. This is something a lot of players struggle with in comp, and part of it just comes down to a lack of teamwork. So often you'll see 3, sometimes 4 players clearing the exact same angle, and because they're all following the same route, a player will just peek out of heaven through a smoke and pick up 2 to 3 members of your team. Generally, pushing through a smoke is a really bad idea, but the reason it's a bad idea is because if a player is holding that smoke, you're a sitting duck. However, if you just smoke a location and then forget about it, players can still easily push through it and pick up kills. So if a player pushing through that smoke is a massive threat, it should be one player's job to watch that smoke and make sure that doesn't happen. Moving on to another subtle thing when using the operator that maybe players don't notice though, is exactly how long you should hold an angle before it's time to leave. Because sometimes it feels like you're just holding an angle with no real assurance that you're going to get value out of it. I think to answer this question though, there are a couple things to keep in mind. The first is exactly what value you're getting out of it. Because if you're holding an angle like short on Haven on defense, unless your team really needs you on the other side of the map, you might literally be okay holding this angle forever. Because you're getting an incredible amount of value out of it without even killing anyone. You know nobody's coming A, and if they start approaching A, you're likely good for at least 1 before falling back. Because of this forward position that you have, your entire team can rotate towards other parts of the map and lock them down more securely, and that's a lot of value in itself. You don't need to be killing players to get value with the operator. Remember, even just locking down territory is an amazing thing to do. Something I love about this round from Shaz is his patience in holding this long angle and halls as his team is working A. Notice how he sits in the same angle for a very long time for a couple of reasons. The first is that he's watching his team's back. If they have 4 players working A, they don't need Shaz sitting in A main looking for picks too. It's perfectly okay to have one player doing literally anything else. They don't need to stay as 5 here. But the other reason Shaz holds this angle for so long is because he knows eventually they're going to have to peek this for info. Unless they have a tripwire or an alarm bot or something watching the area, someone eventually is likely going to peek into halls just to see if anybody is pushed up. It's incredibly common on Breeze to have one player just keep an eye on halls to make sure that nobody's pushing up aggressively, and Shaz knows this, which is why he's playing so patiently waiting for this pick. There's no rush. He's not needed on site. He clearly has an advantage on an angle like this. It's basically just a free pick waiting to happen. Now, one of the big reasons this makes the most sense is because his team is working A right now. If his whole team was working B, it really doesn't make the most sense for him to be aiming down this angle and halls. But once again, he's just playing this support role for his team. He's holding down the angle, he's watching the flank, and he's looking for a pick. Because of this pick, it opens up the round quite a bit more, and it gives his team more options, which is amazing, and it all just came from a bit of patience. To be honest though, a lot of patience also comes down to Gamesense, which is one of the biggest factors when it comes to the difference between a good opper and a great one. One of the reasons Shaz is so good with the operator is because he has a really good understanding of what is going on around him and what angles he should be holding to get the most value out of the operator. Notice how in this round, after his team successfully stalled a B push, Shaz knows that although his team has succeeded in stopping this push, they still do not have a ton of map control towards the A side of the map. Keeping this in mind, you'll notice how he's looking for any sort of presence in middle to see if he can catch anybody rotating towards A. Because it's very clear that the B play did not work, it's incredibly likely that they will start rotating right now, and because of this, he's able to pick up the enemy Sage in mid. But notice how immediately he turns his attention towards halls afterwards. Because of how low Shaz is right now, it's not really a great idea for him to repeat the same angle in mid, even if there were an enemy there. But he also knows that if he's not careful, the enemy may have had time to be able to lurk up through halls behind him. This Sova player does not catch him off guard at all, and the reason for that is because of his understanding of the time it takes for players to rotate and being able to make educated guesses based on that. A lot of Valorant is about using the information you have to make an educated guess on what the enemy might be doing. And because he knows he just killed one in mid and his team is on B, right now Halls is the biggest threat to him, and although many players might be tempted to just aim down mid and look for another pick, had he done this he easily would have died. Using an operator is all about holding angles, and it takes a smart player to know exactly which angles they should be holding and which maybe aren't worth their time or are even incredibly risky to hold. Moving on to one last thing that is incredibly important when using the operator though, and that's the surprise factor. The first round that you purchase an operator can be a really big round because it oftentimes catches the enemy off guard. Playing against an operator requires players to play just a little bit differently than they normally would, and because of this, if they don't know that you have an operator, they may not have adapted to this right away. This is present obviously in earlier rounds of the game, but this is also present in overtime rounds because buying an operator is far more risky. However, on an agent like Jett, sometimes you can get away with it. Shaz seems to prefer opping on defense in overtime far more than opping on offense. However, keep in mind, even if you're not playing Jett, that doesn't mean it's necessarily the worst idea in the world. For example, if you felt like the only way you could deal with the team was by using an operator, even if you're playing an agent like Omen, I might honestly consider buying an op. Because his signature ability is still super strong, you'll know you'll always have smokes, and even if you're sacrificing your blind, at least you'll have the one thing that was able to give you a chance in the game. But if you're going to do this, remember that the first kill is important, because if you give them time to react to it, it's going to make the round infinitely more difficult. This is why when Shaz goes long with his operator in this round, he calls for his teammate to shoot the drone for him. If they see that he's forced up an operator, they will know that he has no utility and they can just play around that. They don't need to push B. They could easily just rotate towards A and force him to retake with an operator and no util, and that's really not going to be a good time. Alternatively, after forcing him off the angle, they could just push him and he would pretty much have nothing to deal with this. It's very important that his teammate shoots the drone here, giving Shaz the ability to peek from the right side while their crosshairs are pulled towards Octagon and land the first kill of the round. And Shaz knows this. This is why he calls for his teammate to shoot the drone in the first place. But the last thing I wanted to comment on this round is actually at the very end when Shaz is holding Cubby with the operator while his team is pushing out onto site. Once again, although Shaz may have been the star player in this round and picked up 2 kills, he's now fallen back into a support role and is holding the angle so his teammates can make it out safely onto site. And even though no players actually ended up being Cubby, it's stuff like this that separates the good from the great in Valorant. Even after picking up 2 in the round, he's still not tunnel visioning on the enemies on site. He's holding and supporting his team, and because of this, his team will eventually close out the round and win this game in overtime. These were just some of the ways that ShahZam uses the operator to dominate his games though, and if you're looking for a more in-depth look of how the pros take control of their games, I highly recommend you check out all the things we have to offer on SkillCapped.com. I generally like to break down the less flashy things that players do in these guides because at the end of the day, these are the things that are going to help you understand the fundamentals in the game and bring your game to the next level. Most of us aren't going to have as good as aim as ShahZam, but by understanding why he does the things that he's doing, we can better figure out how to improve our own game. So if this guide was helpful for you to improve at the game, feel free to drop a like and subscribe to the channel down below. It really does help us out. As well as don't forget to answer our question of the day, which is, do you think the operator needs a buff? We'd love to hear your replies down below. As always, I'm the King Live, and we here at SkillCapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.